It takes it actually up. There you go. I'll just make sure. Do this. Where are we? I should be visible here. I like it when I'm visible. Well, it says we're going out live, but I gotta see something here. Bear with me. There we go. Perfect.
Occurred.
Perfect. Now we're good. I'm one of these paranoid guys, Swami. You know, I gotta double check everything, and professionalism is something that I think is best left to the professionals. You know, honestly,
that's our mantra at type1radio.com.
Right? There you go. Because there's so much of these people who despise mainstream media, and then it seems like they get onto these alternative platforms, and the first thing that they want to do with the technology is figure out how quickly they can turn it into this sort of situation, a more professional situation. No, I already know we're getting a little bit of feedback, so double check to make sure that you've muted the live stream. And then we should be good. Okay. There you go. Okay, folks, ladies and gentlemen, we have got a real treat tonight. Oh, we lost the Swami. We're down to Swami. Folks, that's how it goes. But that's the beauty of what we're going to do. We'll get him back. He'll hit the link again, and we'll get him back in here. As we were saying, professionalism is something left to the professionals. We're going to get these technical details sorted out real quick, but it's going to give us an opportunity anyway. So we've got a rare opportunity here tonight, folks. We've got someone different, someone special, someone who might be you might not be familiar with before, and he's back. Thank God. No pun intended. Swami Shivananda Giri is with us tonight. We're going to be able to talk with him about his experiences, his knowledge, and hopefully explore with him, not only get some traditional information from him, but maybe also have an opportunity to talk to him about some of what's been happening or what can happen with certain traditional teachings in this wider New Age diaspora. And we've got the Swami back. Swami Shivananda Giri, how you doing today, my friend?
Namaste.
Namaste to you. Namaste and shalom. Hello.
He welcomes everyone in the archives, anywhere, with great love and great respect from the heart of all. Thank you for being you.
Namaste, and thank you for being with us. I think this is going to be a rare treat for everybody, because I've had an opportunity to get to know you and talk to you just a little bit, and that's been eye-opening. And so I know that this is going to be a great moment of erudition and elucidation for the crowd. But like all, as we were saying before, professionalism is best left to the professionals. But I'll do my best to play interviewer tonight and set the stage just a little bit. Swami, can I call you Swami? Of
course.
Okay, fantastic. And we'll just dive in. I mean, I guess the best place to start is just at the simple beginnings. Can you let me know and let the audience at home know just a little bit about yourself?
Born in 1963, about let's see, less than a month before Kennedy was shot. Wow. At the age of 3, was in the playroom in our home in Chatsworth, Illinois. And I don't know what exactly happened, but can recall that was sitting there playing with logs and whatevers, and decided to cross my legs and closed my eyes and started repeating a mantra. Sense. It wasn't words that I knew, but it was actually was more like it was repeating itself. The hit. And then everything got very large. And awareness went beyond the physical form there and back a very condition, both in terms of light, like, you know, visual light, and lack of weight, expansion, and just being blissful, just and no concerns, no problems, no angry, no nothing. And that went on, no idea how long. And then it ended and became aware of, you know, the little body again, and went back to doing 3-year-old stuff. But it was something that cast a really strong mark of an occurrence of something. I certainly had no clue what it was, or other than as it was described, it was experience. And what set up numerous other things to come didn't make a whole lot of sense at the time either. So it was a long and winding road that led through martial arts practice.
Okay.
That was the first real set of skills physically acquired. Then went into utilizing ki or chi or prana or any number of terms, but subtle energy, and being able to project this, being able to affect something with it. These are, you know, arts, basically. You don't go to your local martial arts school and learn those sorts of things. But thankfully was in the high quality instructors in those sorts of things, and went into all of that. Then got into the harming with, so then picked up, because all you can do is break people. They're not going to want to play with you for very long. You got to be able to fix it before they leave the dojo. So, and this was something that, you know, we found just was, it worked. We didn't call it much of anything. It was just different intent causing the flow a little different, cooler from a temperature perspective than when it was hotter, when you're knocking someone down from across a room, or pushing someone's knee, or you know, any number of these things. But when that through and makes its exit, depending where you're projecting from, there's, you know, there's sensation there. There's tingling, there's warmth, there's coolness, there's, you know, liquid sort of feeling of the movement through the subtle. And with that was doing an all-night radio show, shocking, and computer in the office there and just sending an email. Don't know why, don't know it specifically, but from the base of the spine began a vibration all the way up the spine, right up to the top of the head, and then heated up and was enormously powerful vibration.
Wow.
And lost physical awareness of the body through the physical outwardly focused senses, and internalized and went upward and outward, and what in some traditions is called the cosmic egg, the entire tissue. And it's effectively an egg shape, or somewhat like a Shiva lingam. It's just simple, but it's all in there. This is the perspective from the viewer, from the observer of not an individuated unit of consciousness, but the overall. Okay. Can penetrate into it and go into the levels and all that. But anyway, didn't even have that vocabulary at the time, just went a big egg. Because, I hadn't really had done, some astral stuff as a kid and that, and it was just real natural. Used to, this is the way a lot of people know of it, using the term astral. This Swami just using the term subtle and not getting all worried about dimensions and realms, and all of this isn't all that terribly important. But used to think of it as a kid, sleep, as pulling the ceiling down. That's why I would think. Well, turns out what was happening was that I was rising above the physical form in the astral and going right up to the ceiling. Hit my nose right against the room and fall asleep there. Just is a little bit with the physical body, but aware of it, could still feel the bed through the physical senses. So utilizing both the astral or subtle body and the physical at the same time, and having awareness of just doing what they do. But it really felt like having that right down on my nose from the physical. If you're thinking from the physical perspective, it's coming down, but you're actually raising up.
Okay.
And but it wasn't, didn't have that understanding about what was happening, and certainly no one to talk to about such a thing. But after doing a whole bunch of martial arts stuff and competing on ESPN and the World Breaking Championships and setting Guinness World Records for doing all kind of crazy martial arts stuff, have been booked. Yeah, was booked to go to California to be on a TV show called Guinness World Records Primetime, and was going to break 5,000 pounds of concrete blocks in 2 minutes. And the week before we're scheduled to go out to, they stopped production of the show. Also had the opportunity to do some all league pro wrestling. Have had the opportunity to work with a few of the big guys. Got to run in and save King Kong Bundy one time, and
hey,
so yeah, that was cool. That was very cool. He was kind of freaked out because took and showed my thing in the for the wrestling show was I was a local DJ, known as the Human Weapon. These martial art records and been on TV and all this,
Right.
But that a little bit to hopefully sell a few more seats. But when Bundy came in, it was in a high school gym, and we were on the stage breaking stuff. And he comes up and he's watching us set up, and he's like, That's real. I'm like, yeah. He's like, I said, you hit it really hard. That's it. But there was energetics to it. But, it was just neat to have King Kong Bundy go, holy crap.
I don't want to get distracted because there's so much we need to talk about. But if King Kong Bundy is referenced, Swami, the one thing I will tell you though is you might want to, when we switch back and forth, sometimes you might want to mute your mic occasionally just so we don't have feedback. But I'll let you. We're gonna have you doing the line share of the talking, so it shouldn't come up too much. If I could take this brief pause though to ask you a question, you've said so much so far, and I'm dying to jump in and explore some of these topics. Starting right from the beginning of your story, when you were a child and you had that first mantra experience, was it a traditional mantra that had come to you, or was it just something that your mind had concocted, your youthful mind had concocted?
Oh no, it's a traditional. Yeah. There's just no way I would have been exposed to those syllables. So what came to be clear later was that this was the mantra I had used end stage of the prior. So in the practice I was doing at that time, releasing the body, that was the mantra that was used. So it was just something that was already, anyone who's not utilized vibrational frequency to its most subtle with the use of mantra or any type of toning or sound other than what's picked up by now we're talking about inner stuff, thought. I mean, we're going way more subtle than the physical senses. So an individual trains themselves in a mantra when they receive mantra diksha or a mantra initiation from a human being who has the capability of enlivening that mantra within them, grow into it. And you notice more and more and more with the deeper your practice goes.
Is the living master?
It was definitely a traditional mantra.
Okay, interesting. Is in your experience, number one, so we've brushed into the topic of reincarnation, but also I want to explore with you the notion of, and this is debated amongst some in some communities, the notion of the necessity of a living master and the necessity of the tradition of guru to student, guru to devotee as being integral and necessary to the subtleness to work. There are many that will say you can listen to the Hare Krishna mantra on the soundtrack to Hair, but please don't think that you're going to get out of that mantra what you would get if you didn't receive it through this Diksha transmission. And maybe you could flesh out some of these terms, for the audience.
Well,
I mean,
Diksha, not only is the best, well, actually the best term in English for Diksha is transmission. It is like, let's say, this Swami sitting here with a lit candle. You've got a candle, but it's not lit yet. And you have a seat, and this Swami hands you this candle, and you touch your candle to this, and bam, well, now there's 2 lit candles. And this one has lost nothing, and this one, yours, has come alive. It's now functioning in a way that it wasn't before.
Can
kind
this
of
be,
what
yeah.
mission is. It's
Right.
an energetic thing. It's not about intellectual, theoretical. No. That's all mind busy stuff. We're talking about things far more subtle and far more supportive to later experiences and circumstances and skill sets and siddhis and all of that just goes way outside what most people would accept is legitimate and real and possible, only because they've not experienced it yet themselves.
Can you read it in a book?
Well, the books and everything are helpful, but again, that's just mind.
Okay.
That's just the mental processes. The knowings come, or at least in this Swami's experience, and have heard tales of people with other things, but things become intuitive. They flash. Things there and can't actually give a good logical step by step curriculum sort of explanation of why it's known. It's just known. Doubt, no confusion. Things become known. Intuitive sorts of things. Like many of us, especially those who would come and watch your channel, our gut feeling, or whatever it is, that very subtle but hard to put a finger on kind of internal barometer that your BS detector, your truth detector, your inspirational response, your bhakti, your whatever it may be, that's always been very rich and very full and completely misunderstood. Because as a kid, listening to gospel music on the car radio and sitting there with bhakti tears running down and having no idea why I'm crying. I'm like, I haven't taken an ass whooping. I haven't, what with the tears, and my father was one of the types that was like, what the hell are you crying about? I'll give you something to cry about. What? That sort of thing. So it was difficult. It was really difficult. And that's something that carries on to this day. The bhakti, it just happens. It's not like I'm turning it on and turning it off. It comes when it comes, and every now and again it's triggered by certain things, and these joyful tears and all that come, and got to wring out the beard, and it gets like that sometimes, and tradition. These are the hallmarks of someone who has strong bhakti, devotional feeling. Wouldn't call it an emotion. It's more of an emotive feeling, emotion. And that can be towards a human. It can be toward a concept. It can be toward a situation. It can be toward any number of different things can have a response in someone who has this in their nature. But then there are those who are and don't think there's anything else to be cared about, or that that's the supreme way of end things, when there are several ways, and there's a way that's right for everybody. The thing is finding that which is appropriate to us. You know, we have the World Wide Web now with far more information than any of our predecessors ever had. And now it's more about just finding that, which when we get into it, even if it's confusing in the beginning, something makes us stick it out. Whatever it is that we got to go through to get to a point of mastery, you know, or to any degree, or enlightenment, or, you know, I mean, whatever one's of choice might be. You know, there's all kinds of, because every tradition on the planet had a mystic branch.
Right. Okay.
So you know, in Islam they have the Sufis,
Yes. Yeah.
who are the yogis, and the Kabbalah guys in Judaism, they are the Sufis. You know, this is interior stuff. This is not got to do with the physical form, and that you're going deeper and you're going into another whole set of parameters and experiences and things, you know. But what is interesting to this Swami is that come to find is basically the same.
Okay.
You know, it's got a different vocabulary, different tradition, and perhaps different methods. But what is discovered as self with a big S, the universal self, God consciousness, these sorts of things have very, very alignments and experiences of the ones who would be considered the leaders in these areas. You know, you could look at the work of any of the yogic poets or pundits, what they're writing about and what they're expressing, to what Rumi had to say. It's very much the same stuff. Rumi was a Sufi, a Muslim. Right. And while many spend so much time and energy getting worked up and wigged out about people of different traditions and different methods and different faiths and lineages and all of these things, I mean, that's completely silly. That makes no more sense than for C.W. Chanter, Brandon Young, to go to set us up a fire base outside the Baskin Robbins, because we hate them damn cookies and cream eaters, and we'll kill the next ones that come through. Baskin Robbins has 31 flavors. Eat what you like.
Right. Well, I want to thank you. Number one, you just made Brandon richer by $5. That's an inside joke that he's going to get right now. He's about to punchline us. Swami, you know, it's so interesting. I've been holding on to this question for a moment. I've been listening, but there's a question I've got, because based on, you know, your birth in 1963, you know, we all know about, you know, I'm coming where I came into the planet in 1975. You know, the 60s had happened, and I was kind of born into the generation that was born to the baby boomers that went through the Vietnam protests and the explosion of Eastern and esoteric traditions amongst the youth in the West. But listening to your story and the story of your innate kind of experience as a young child with this information that kind of came through in your words, I guess, from a former life, I'm just struck and want to explore with you, or know if you had any thoughts about this notion of this explosion in the West, you know, coming from the East. It sounds as though there was like a bubbling happening, even almost like prenatally, for this this growth to happen. I don't know if that resonates with you.
There are a great number of us now who in the traditions that have come down to us, from the shamans to the yogis to whatever, you know, I mean, every indigenous culture had its own thing, from Iceland to, so, you know, it's all working towards the same sorts of things, but discussed in the way appropriate to that culture, that language, and the ones who were the teachers. And there are a great many of us in the US now, or, you know, Eastern stock, who were South American stock, who were, you know, but now is a time for states to be more thoroughly affected knowledge, just brought into a modern context and delivered and expressed in a way that people can get a hold of, use out of, without just doubt and confusion and misunderstanding. That makes a huge difference. And then, I mean, good Lord, add the internet into all that. You know, if we look back at that, you know, okay, a few from our but the yogic end of things, the Eastern, for any unfamiliar, the Buddha was a yogi. Start anything. There had been people been becoming enlightened for millennia before the Buddha did it. Did not utilize master. He did self-inquiry, which can also be done. Again, this is to that finding the path most appropriate. Also did some other practices that were really intense, and he found them to be wastes of time for him. Now, for others, they may be great practices, you know, and there, from this Swami point of view, there's nothing wrong with that. One became the many, and the many become the one again, and all got to get worked out in some way or another, you know. And each world cycle, if you get into the really large amounts of time spoken of from the Vedas and that, about the yuga cycles going on for just thousands and thousands and thousands of years before one cycle, you know. And then there are those who are within the traditions who have been around world cycle after world cycle after world cycle, you know. There are things to this, you know. There's actual history to the word vimana. There's a whole lot that well, since the last cataclysmic global event, which is close to wiping humanity out, but we're in a recovery now, and hopefully, you know, nothing of that sort will come again anytime in the near future. But and those that, okay, you might think of as the Illuminati, the Bavarian Illuminati, you know, this crew,
right?
The kings and queens and royalties, and, you know, who think they're better than everybody else and they have the right to rule. Well, they just kind of took over from what was an enormously wonderful global civilization that got damn near wiped out. You know, and we've all gone into culturally, we've when the Vedas, well, for any unfamiliar, the Vedas of India are much agreed that is the oldest religious writings that we have. And the way that things were and the way humans functioned prior to the time, even when the Vedas got written down for the first time, because it wasn't necessary to write. He had enormous capacity to memorize and communicate, far exceeding what we're capable of today. So the writing had to happen. You know, to put things into what are called sutras. It means a thread. You get one thread, and then you wrap it with another thread, and then another thread, and then, well, that now you're building a tapestry. Now you have, but these sutras, which are these sentences in ancient texts, the complete teaching. The sutra is great. It gives a distillation, but you then need a knower, a master, to unpack it. To, okay, that line, okay. And then you go through a whole lot of that sort of thing. Once you're in a conversation with someone on what it is they are skilled in assisting others with. And these go into subtle levels, and it goes into, lower levels and higher levels and all that sort of thing.
Let me ask you, speaking of Kali Yuga, the notion that there are cycles, there's a golden age, and then eventually we fall into this notion of the Kali Yuga. First people are they're honest, they're humble, they're good, they're righteous, and then slowly things change, and maybe a new era starts with a Bronze Era. And by the time we get to this notion of Kali Yuga, everything is falling apart. The politicians are perverts, right? It's Pizzagate, it's Podesta, it's everyone's a liar. No one knows what to believe because all the news is engaged in fratricide. This is false news. No, that's false news. And now no one knows what to believe, and everything falls apart. But in keeping with that, and on that theme of things falling apart, and building off that and the notion of the need of an enlightened master. As I said, I was born in 1975, and by the time I came to engage in spiritual explorations or traditions, I quickly learned that when someone said guru, you better run the other way, because gurus there were molestation problems, there was abuse, it's a cult, it's a mind control cult, it's everyone from Reverend Sun Myung Moon to L. Ron Hubbard down to, look, I was a practitioner of Krishna consciousness for many years, but even people would say of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Prabhupada, or certainly of the 11 riksha or gurus that came after him, this was just a Shanda, horrendous situation started to arise. And like I said, so now we're at a point where there's a fundamental distrust of the guru. That's people say guru, and they immediately say this is a problem. So
people come around all this Swami all the time and say guru like they're holding a dead rat by the tail. That's right. That's the guru, instead of, that's why this Swami thankful that came up through martial arts training, where the master is the lesson. Like him. You want to be able to move like he does. You want to be able to have the effect he can have. And the way you do that is by watching and imitating. And that's done every day in the dojo. He demonstrates the move nice and slow, so we uncoordinated folk can try it out, okay. And then you build up speed, then you build precision, then you build power. And then you put energy, and all of these varying levels start coming together. And it's very much the same way in spiritual practice. The one who knows and has already climbed the mountain and is sitting at the top is exceedingly helpful as a guide to those who are on the climb.
Is it inevitable?
That way, it's pure. You know, I mean, the human part can always get messed up because one is at the peak to remain there. You know, there's still playing out and karmas and all the rest of that. So, you know, to think, first of all, to have any preconceived notions about how an enlightened individual should be, act, or doesn't act. There is no set ancient texts that lay out some of the bare bones of it. But still, even with those things, you know, you can think they're an asshole. You can wonderful human you've ever met, or you can think they're a fool that dresses funny. And, you know, I mean, it doesn't, they're not affected by it. And we can see them any way we see them, you know, and that's the way it is. Anybody who sees this Swami just sees what they see to make them see something else.
So the devotee is always left in a position of this, the eternal question of, have I identified this guru as being bad or nefarious, and therefore I should leave? And then that the eternal question of, is that desire to leave because the guru is bad, or because the devotee just doesn't want to do the work or the process?
Well, there's that. There are both. You know, it just depends on the individual and the teacher. Not every teacher's way is the same. You know, some do some pretty crazy stuff, but if people are getting gain from it, well, then I would say you have to overall, whatever parts of them you can't deal with, and see that, you know, they're bringing something to being. You know, they're helping people improve their lives. A long-term thing, great. And even if it's only short-term, but then they learn later something that's enormously important. You know, I mean, there is no just one way of doing anything.
Do you have any insight on how a person would know which way is good for them? Like
That's a day-to-day thing. A devotee, a disciple, a Swami can have the whole mess of doubts going on at any time, because you get into the mind, and anything that'll trigger some sort of a negative, or, you know, I mean, this is the same even within India, where, you know, all of this came from. There's still plenty who don't accept the legitimacy of the guru student relationship, you know. And speaking from this lineage, guru is not a title, it is a function. One who is guruing is doing something, is producing effects that are greater than themselves. The ways you know that you've met someone who, when these things are happening within you, and you realize it's not my something happening here that just keeps expanding, you know. And everybody gets, it's very, very difficult in the West in these days to find folks who can easily go into the traditional dynamic, because we've been first, which, you know, this Swami would say is also part of the Kali, becoming selfish and wanting to put ourselves above all others and beat someone in order to win, and all of those sorts of things. This whole competitive, killing, warring type of aspect to life. Well, this happens in the Kali Yuga. This darkest of times, it's when the unjust are running things and the just are beaten up. And in the Hindu cycle, this is the Kali Yuga. We're in it. We got a long time to go. Ain't none of us getting out of it alive that are hearing this.
Right.
And we do the best we can with what we have to work with. And for any student of any path, always going to be those points where you don't fully understand yet that are going to cause doubt, cause confusion, be based on something that may have nothing to do with what you're currently working on, but it triggers a fear, triggers an anxiety, and then you want to run away. Well, the guru is trying to help release you from your limitation, this body and this outwardly focused sensory perception, and gain more.
Let me share something with you. Let me share a personal belief with you just to get feedback. I'm just curious. Being on the spiritual path that I walked, I went through many different phases and many different, schools.
Mm-hmm.
Everything from Krishna consciousness to Scientology to the Church of Satan to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I've came to the conclusion at the end that, that everything that's happening is happening within the mind of the believer. That any Shaktipat, any transmission, any energy, anything that could be attributable to a guru, a master, or an expert, or a saint, or whatever, was wholly taking place in the mind of the observer. And and that basically there was a pragmatic honesty to the atheistic worldview that I just abandoned because it was no good being an atheist. It was just, an excuse for me to be turn into basically a kind of lay libertine nihilist. It doesn't matter, so just drink yourself to death because nothing's really real anyway. And then I just kind of rejected that just kind of decided to believe for the sake of believing in something, because it would be better than just, being an inhabitant of a cold, indifferent world, circling a cold, indifferent sun that would one day go supernova, and eventually the universe would blank out anyway. So what's it all about, Alfie? You know what I mean?
Right.
So, and the reason that I just lay that on you is just, just to, like I said, is just, number one, I want to be honest with you, and I don't want to just, sit here and just be like, listen to what you guys say, and I want to give you some feedback and get some feedback too. But, let me ask you this. This might be easier. Are you a deist? Do you believe in these entities, Shiva, Kali, Vishnu, Brahma? Are these
the way this Swami's perspective is that what is represented in what most people understand to be the Hindu pantheon, gods, goddesses, devas, asuras, demons, whatever. These are all anthropomorphic metaphor represented in artwork, so that and understandings can be transmitted, stood back in the day when nobody was reading.
right?
So through the artwork, in the artwork, certain things can be relayed, and you could just see the artwork. Couldn't read, you could then have a way to start to mentally process what this is about. What's this for? What does this do? But all of the deities, this Swami is just as happy saying they're entirely natural forces that simply exist. And a tone at a certain frequency will do a certain thing. Well, that's what that is then. You know, and if what you're examining falls within that frequency, well, that's going to have something to do with it, support it or contradict it or whatever. But these representations were utilized in a way that meaning and understanding to those who were not literate.
This is like
God to have the varying stances and holding the mudras and, you know, all of these things, all these little pieces put together a very nice tapestry regarding whatever that deity represents.
Okay. So you're in the Shivaya tradition, which would traditionally focus on the god Shiva as being the supreme personality of Godhead, as opposed to Vaishnava traditions like Krishna consciousness, which would look to a form or an avatar of Vishnu as being the supreme personality of Godhead, or Krishna, or Swami Narayan, or what have you. And do those distinctions matter, or in your understanding, do they?
What it does is it kind of it branches appropriate until it is no longer, and the other becomes appropriate. It's not a versus kind of thing. It's not a competition in any way. It's just the way that's more appropriate to an individual. We need with a deity, or can they become comfortable with the nameless, the formless, the silence, without all the hubbub and visions and sounds and dancing and all, you know, all that's, then there's a place for the contemplative.
Right.
And those who would, an ancient text, then go out and dance around, or what, you know what I mean? It's
right.
just what means, whether the Vaishnava, which is the relationship with deity, form, name, and the Shaivite, which is no form, no name, go through all that, beyond all that, allness, silence, that all, you know, that where all frequency is simply the waveform. It's not particle until it's observed. Observes it, it's not particle. It's still waveform. This is what quantum mechanics and this is what yogis have talked about for a long time. Observation changes, brings that to a reality for the observer. For those not observing it, it isn't. It's the observation that makes it seem real, gives it separation, gives it individuation. Not observed, it's just it's just the all, you know, and it's the waveform, not the particle, not the individuating unit. Does that make sense?
A little. I mean, hopefully it sounds like it makes sense. I mean, it certainly sounds, you know, that sounds beautiful. And I think I get it. You talked before about the visual metaphors as being, you know, communicative of to the illiterate or maybe the unenlightened layperson. Let's look at Shiva, the traditional image of Shiva. just so I could maybe get a little bit of a roadmap of what these symbols or forms or things that are traditionally associated with Shiva lend to this communication, if I may.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, I'd just be curious. And am I wrong to say that Shiva is traditionally the god form that is traditionally associated with the yogic aesthetic,
Yes.
as you say, the contemplator, the hermit, the the practicer, the practitioner of severe austerity and tapas, right? So that's that. So let me start from the top to the bottom. The Shiva is traditionally presented with having what I would call a top knot or a bun on his head. Then coming down, we see that there's tilak. There's forehead markings. They're traditionally associated with Shiva versus the traditional markings that are associated with Vishnu. And then going down, we also have Shiva holding.
Just real quick, for those unfamiliar, the Shiva ones are the three, and then the Vaishnava will and then go on to the nose, and but it's the three lines are ash, and they represent the three worlds burned to ashes. Have any influence on the individual. They wear the ash of the
Shiva's the destroyer. Brahma creates, Vishnu maintains, Shiva destroys.
Well, it could be said that way. This Swami doesn't so much care for that because that's often seen as a purely negative. It's more like Shiva, after the games have been played, takes the chess set and puts it all back and puts it away.
Okay.
I were to sit down and play a game of chess, well, we have no way of knowing what the final move's going to be, what strategy is going to be successful, who's going to win, it's completely open. So we can play the game.
I'm going to win.
What's that?
I'm gonna win. You can break boards and move the subtle body, but I'll rock you a chess. No, I'm just teasing you. I'm just joking around with you.
But at the end of the game,
right,
from the king to the lowly pawn are laid on their side, put in the box, and put back on the shelf until time for the next game. Which, if you're from the Hindu triumvirate point of view, Brahma is just the energy which brings creation into, it's just the agency which the physical and subtle creations, energy of Shakti, of Ma, the mother of all. That's because Shiva is the stillness from which everything comes and to which everything returns eventually when the game has been played out. This Swami sees Shiva. Like viewers might be familiar with the Shiva Nataraj at CERN.
Yeah, you read my mind because I was gonna ask you. You run in some deep conspiracy circles. Yeah. I know that you've been to Free Your Mind. I know that you know and have associated with individuals like Jay Parker and Mark Passio and that nefarious scumbag Brandon Young. But I mean, the talk of the Shiva statue outside of CERN, I'm very curious as to what you may encounter from this community regarding that, and what's your interpretation of why so many people have latched on to that statue, which is such a simple explanation behind it. The Indian government, the Indian government visited CERN. They wanted to bring a present, like most people do, and they brought a statue of Shiva. But now, of course, that's a symbol to the world that CERN is going to dismantle the universe, for the draconian bloodlords. Right.
Well, this is where it gets kind of interesting to watch, you know, whose mouth these terms come flying out of. When you get your, you know, your fundamentalist Christian commentators, oh, this is Satan, and you know what? No, here's what's happening in the Shiva Nataraj image. Nataraj means king of the dance.
Okay.
This is acknowledging that when Shiva does his dance, creation occurs. Things happen. If you'll notice in this image, he's in the circle, but he's standing on of a small being. That's the demon of ignorance that he's dancing on top of. He's like, come on, don't be stupid. It's fun. You know, I mean, he's having a blast. Whether it's creating, destroying, whatever, an entire spectrum of experiences and knowledge and all of that to be gained. What that that's what that statue represents. You know, I mean, it's not a scary thing. It's you know, good luck. It's, you know, find out what the pieces are, you know, but you get all these endless Christian folk that, you know, don't accept that the 18 years of silence Testament was the time when Yeshua was in India. You know, all the miracles performed in the Bible are yogic siddhis that have been talked about for thousands of years. He wasn't the first to do any of those things. You know, it just got harnessed into a control system, Roman Catholic Church. You know, I mean, they twisted much control, and the very, you know, the world's very first intelligence gathering in the confessional.
Interesting.
You go and you tell on yourself.
Have you noticed this? I often talk about people in the conspiracy theory world who will often have these ideas or notions that they might not even be Christians themselves. They might not consider themselves Judeo-Christian people. They might have some beliefs that might be quite heretical to mainstream Christianity, yet they will still, you know, engage in these lines of theory or these conspiracy theories that come from, you know, Christian traditions, whether it be from looking at the observation of the statue of Shiva outside of CERN, or whether it be, a bizarre fixation with Freemasonry or whatever, and they don't even seem to understand or know that these conspiracies were hatched or came from a belief system that they might not share or have. I don't know, food for thought. Let me ask you about this. You know, Kali, I mean, Kali, traditionally thought of as the mate of Shiva, because you mentioned things that are scary or things that are presumed to be demonic or interpreted to be demonic. Where do you see the energy of Kali coming from? Where do you see it?
Kali is that aspect, you know, that is like bear. You mess with those cubs, she will kill you. That is the most fierce, protective, unbeatable. I mean, and that's what Kali represents. That aspect of nature. You know, that's easy for this Swami to see it that way.
Right.
Very difficult for others, you know, because they see the tongue sticking out, or, you know, any number of things. So much of this is just It's not like there's really a big screaming 8-armed bitch, no. This is metaphor so that things can be discussed, and these are operant features of the nature of our existence. Don't have to be blown up into gods and goddesses. They can be, okay, whatever. But for those who have these, inner experiences of interacting with gods and goddesses, okay, great. It doesn't make someone right or wrong. That's their experience. So there are many of us who have experiences that just don't align well with a lot of things that assume. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. Reincarnation, is reincarnation real to you, or is it a metaphor, or
that one gets kind of hairy, because if you are viewed from within space continuum, then the linear concept of life then return to the subtle, to another physical life, then that can make sense. Okay. But if you go into the little scary concept of, oh, time only happens or appears to happen, the time-space continuum, and only because we've got a sun, Earth is slinging around, or, forgive me, any flat earthers, that doesn't go anywhere, but enjoy. That's what all our time is based on. Some hours of light, some hours of dark. Every few hours, we wouldn't have perception of time. It's just now all the time. Subtle, you don't have that. It's not like, okay, well, here we are in the astral, now we all have to go to sleep. No, it's not. It's different there. Time or the speed of things is different because the substance is a finer, more subtle. So it moves quicker. Settle down into the physical realm, which is the slower. And there are places even lower, which are the hellish, realms and things like that.
Does karma, is there punishment for sin? Is there bad karma? Can one engage in activities to such a degree that one earns themselves a place in these hellish realms? Can one be good to rise above, take higher birth, and go higher to, I don't know, a local plane, plane of the demigods?
In our tradition, what it says is, if you worship the demigods, you will go to the demigod. But you don't worship them in order to know self, to know all, to know the source. They too are created. Okay. So if you're going too short, you may enjoy dancing with them. You may interact fashion for some period of time. That's not the end of the road.
What is the end of the road? Not to cut you off, I'm sorry.
Stillness. Silence. No, that's as it sounds. Stillness, silence. That's what's eternal. Everything in creation has a beginning, a middle, and an end.
So there will be an end. Is moksha? The final end?
Well, moksha, individual, okay, moksha or freedom, mukti, is liberation from the cycle of birth and death. The way that the messages and teachings about moksha is that you can reach one of two of mukti. Really happens. There's jivan mukti, which is when one becomes liberated while still embodied. Mukti, which is liberation upon dropping the physical body. But you don't go back subtle then as an individuated unit, you expand. And there is no individual perspective anymore. Because any individual perspective of any circumstance, vibrational frequency, realm, dimension, or anything else is less limitation to that. It only covers so much, only so much can be done, you know, limited. But it's the stillness, it's the silence from which all activity comes and to which it all returns.
So the jiva finally would obtain not its liberation, it would just enter, it would just become part of the liberated state, the liberated ocean?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Wave, it's in the fierceness of its wave activity is nothing but ocean, is it?
Okay. But because we live in this world, and because the new age and the conspiracy theory world are totally intermixed and intermelded, you have to have encountered some of these thoughts and ideas, like Mark Passio. Mark Passio is a devotee, in my estimation, of David Icke. I mean, I don't know how else to understand him. And I know he's kind of become more political anarchist over the time, but when I first was introduced to Mark Passio, one of the biggest teachings that he, Simon Parkes, and David Icke had was this notion of these teachings as being kind of evil, or a way to trap souls, notions of soul cages, and there's a soul cage around the earth and all this stuff. Walking in these circles, how do you translate, where do these ideas come from? And do you have any idea or thought about what they might mean for as a testimony to, or a tool to diagnose what a person might be missing in their cosmological outlook or psychological outlook? Or is there anything about it that you think makes sense, or is it just different way to say the same thing? And what about it? What parts of it are bad?
There is so much that depends entirely upon action in the mind of the person receiving the data. The speaker has no control over that. They have their own notions, their own experiences, their own beliefs, their own knowledge. And I mean, it's not, there are no that. Everybody's got their perspective, and that's a good thing. You know? And this Swami tries to assist those who feel it appropriate to follow this type of a path. And if they want to go do something, you know, wait for aliens to show up and work for us, or whatever other sort of concept is out there, believe that, love it, buy the t-shirt, whatever, you know. We'll see. If we keep breathing in and out, we're going to find out now, aren't we? So there's varying traditions and thought patterns and concepts and methods and means of exploration, and and all of that stuff. For someone at some point. All correct for everybody all the time, of course not. But you went through a number of different things that certainly don't outward interaction with one another, but for some reason you came in contact with these varying types of around in it. You got it on you, you check it out, and then you go, no. On to the next one. Okay, great. This is the way wisdom is gained. A wise man does is he does not injure himself or anyone else unnecessarily. That's knowledge in action. It's not intellectual. Wise one knows where the hole is and doesn't fall in it. Rushing through might have all the strength and power and speed. Crack, broken ankle. The wise one goes, go down right there. It's just like that. It's the experiences. It's the understanding. In our, excuse me, I'm unfamiliar. Have some common roots within story of our exposure to different. So I would say but there was one in particular who was the guru of this Swami's guru, Bhaktananda, referred to as Baba. Very, very big, right understanding. Until you thoroughly understand something, you don't really know it. You can believe a great many things that may end up. You can have all kinds of misunderstandings. You can have doubts, but when you know, then you know. Your GPS might be able to plot out 15 different ways for you to get to your grandma's house. Those, done it. You've been that way. There may be a number of others that are available, take longer, take shorter, whatever, but maybe they were not appropriate. Done. You've had the experience and gained the knowledge. Not a theoretical thing. It's not a book. You did it. Bought the t-shirt, had a beard, split. Now you have the knowledge, and it can't be taken from you. What about, a huge library of who wants to move that stuff?
Hey, why don't we do this? At this point, I think it feels natural. I asked you my screwball question. I've got Jewish ancestry, and there's always a rich tradition of having to bother a kind of a Socratic method of teaching and having to bother the rabbi with the intricate questions like, but if the guy were to fall down on Tuesday, you know what I mean? These wacky questions. Maybe we can, if you don't mind.
No.
I think we've covered a lot of ground. I would love to allow people, if some people wanted to present some questions that maybe we could throw to you, help
Sure.
answer any specific needs. If anyone has got any specific questions for Swami with us tonight, please, now is the time to enter them into the chat box. Let's see what we get. There's a little bit of a delay, so it might take us a minute or two.
Caps, it'll make them much easier for him to notice.
Okay. It's in the screen. Okay, here we go. Of course, now we're gonna get a whole bunch of statements. Oh wait, Thomas had a question. Who's the dude in the picture frame? Perfect.
So that's my
Right?
guru.
Practical and pragmatic.
Yes. Title is His Holiness Mahamandeleshwar Paramahamsa Swarupananda Vishwaguru Maharaj. He's a psychologist from Hollywood, California, lives right off Hollywood Boulevard. And he received Diksha from Baba Muktananda in 1974. He was the first American-born human being to be invited into the rank 80 Mahamandeleshwars. Mandeleshwars within Sanatana Dharma, commonly known as Hinduism, the Mahamandeleshwars, they are two. They have all sorts of that level that they supervise and they disseminate and defend and settle disputes and all that sort of thing. So he was the first to be into that group serving this particular planet. And he's still alive, and we still interact quite a bit. And put his danda, which is the stick that we get. I'll show you. This is the danda half that we get when we go through the Swamihood ceremony.
So yeah. So you're a renunciate. You're in the renounced. Yes. You're
yes. Although I'm a householder.
Oh, you are.
One can be both. Yeah, it's possible. There have been a lot of swamis that were householders.
Oh, I see. Well, it's like horses for courses, I guess. Just to elucidate for the audience, in some schools of thought, in order to attain the higher ranks and levels, like a person becomes a monk or a woman becomes a nun, you would have a renounced form of life where one would abandon household concerns, the raising of children, the keeping or maintaining of the household, a wife, a husband, or a spouse, and would, renounce these things in order to serve and to grow and to know. But that's interesting that your tradition does not require that. The word is escaping me. What's the word I'm looking for? That when
ascetic?
A person takes, not an ascetic. It's the S word for a person. One more time. Sannyasi. Sannyas, exactly.
That's a Swami. That's go through the Swami ceremony. You watch your own funeral rites carried out. This is the beginning of a dying process, a dying to the world. India,
wow.
When this is done, and you take on whatever it may be, then your name is considered legally dead. That you are this different now. And as a way of showing mission of this and this Swami's Dharma, I went and had my legal name changed to Swami Shivananda. On my library card, on my driver's license, on my medical records, everything. And this dot on. So that now that's extremely untraditional, but do it because who knows? We may all end up in FEMA camps. But if you do, and you recognize this dot, well, come say hi, and we'll we'll sit around and talk and meditate.
Right.
But this Swami's way of outwardly demonstrating the surrender of accepting this duties and responsibilities of a Swami under and carrying out Yoga, which is the name of our particular system. Mahadeva means great God. Mahayoga means the great union. Yoga just means union. Yoga doesn't mean stretches and twists and no. That's one little aspect of the 8 basic aspects of what a complete yogi is. Asana, the term asana, which most people understand asanas, if they even understand the word at all, to be the stretches and the twists and all that stuff. Well, good, but no one has ever stretched or twisted their way into enlightenment. No, what they're referring to there is the sitting, becoming still, the sitting without needing to move, sitting with focused mind, one pointed focus, inward. The senses inward, upward, and outward. But on a bit of a rant there. Did I answer?
No, that was good. That was good information. Okay. As we say nowadays, that was an incredible download. Right? I got a lot of codes on that one. Let me ask you a curious question about, is it Baba is the shortened term that we use for the man of the picture?
Oh, no.
Okay.
Well, we refer to him as HH, we who are
Okay.
But he's my guru. He's my direct
connection.
Made me a Swami and gives me instruction and whatever it's necessary, and
Right. Did he become was he a psychologist or a psychiatrist? Did he become a psychologist or psychiatrist? What is it?
He's a psychologist.
Okay. Did he become a psychologist before he became a Swami or after he became a Swami?
Yes. As a matter of fact, he's told me that it was his academic, being a holder of 2 PhDs, interfered and kept him from reaching the absolute, because he thought he could read his way to it. Going for that rather than the sadhana, the practice, the inward, he was used to approaching everything from that construct of read the book, study, and that won't do it either. It's a balance of things, and there are those of us who are more comfortable with the studious, scholarly, and then there are a great many who can't be bothered with that. So, but that was something he's admitted to me that caused him to take years more than was actually necessary, because he was stuck in that mental thought process mode that an academic becomes highly skilled with.
Right. Okay, I think we got another question coming in.
Sure.
I don't. One of this might be just a random question, but let me see if this wasn't it Hinduism that Buddha discarded in his search for enlightenment. Can you do anything with that one?
Not the way this Swami understands it.
Okay, fair enough. Question.
He didn't chase after gods. He said doubt path. Okay, well that's right. I wouldn't turn it away from anything. He was successful. He's produced, his teachings have produced very high quality people. It works.
Now, to my understanding, the biggest form of Buddhism today, I'm forgetting the word, but it's in many ways it's very similar to just mainstream Christianity, that if you say the Buddha's name when you die, you're going to go to the Buddha fields and live on a lotus flower forever. You know,
That
this
sounds
kind of,
terribly boring. Okay.
yeah, doesn't it? Right. Okay, so
Okay.
we got, I think we got a good question coming in here. Question: what is the end game for man? Progress into the future, unite with the stars, or crash, reboot, and back to Mother Earth? I probably read that a little badly. Let me try and read it again. What is the end game for man? Progress into the future, unite with the stars, or crash, reboot and back to Mother Earth? Question mark, I guess. That's another big one.
Well, see, now if you want to start bringing timelines into the discussion, who knows? Because, you know, things are shifting around, and galactic waves of energy that are planet now that haven't in a very long time, and who knows what, you know, what the actual results of the range that our planet is moving into right now. What?
So your understanding, your knowledge base can allow for things like multiple timelines. Why not?
Yeah.
I don't know. Oh, there you go. I guess so. I mean, you know what I mean. But what I mean, but I mean, when I get to, I mean, this is like, well, do you have a take on the Mandela effect? If we're gonna, let's just go through the list. Do you have a take
Sure,
on the
sure.
Mandela effect? I mean, if
There
the
are
past can be rewritten, I
things
mean,
that Swami, from when they were new, in the few Mandela effect videos that I've seen, I gotta say, that ain't the way it was.
interesting.
I had that, and that ain't what it said. You know, there's a whole bunch, and I've seen you do. I've seen some of you talking about the specifically the biblical aspects and things brought up in Mandela effect, but also, I mean, song. There's all sorts of things. The funny looking tail on the Ford logo that didn't used to be there, but it's there now. There's all sorts of, we can get wigged out about it, or we can just go, wow, well, perhaps maybe this sort of thing's been going on the whole time and nobody's about it. Don't know. I wouldn't, all I can say is that there are things that are spoken of in some of these Mandela effect that just simply are not the way it was once upon a time. You know, the Berenstain Bears had an E.
Do you think? You know, but I gotta tell you, you know what I mean? Because my thing about it is this, is that, I mean, I get it, but at the same time, like, the stuff that's misremembered is the stuff that
That's also
we would
a possibility in a lot of those situations.
right. Because it's like this. It's like the classic examples: mirror, mirror on the wall. Now it's magic mirror, or vice versa.
Yeah.
And Luke, I am your father, versus no, I am your father, and all these things. What always strikes me is that they're always the things that would have been repeated. Number one, amongst the kids and the youth on the playgrounds to each other. These are the classic lines that we would have constantly repeated ourselves. And people have to remember, like, back in the day, you know, when I was growing up, I saw Star Wars one time in 1977, right? And it wasn't until like years later that I had the opportunity to see it again. I mean, it wasn't like, you know, nowadays where the same things, you know, well, in my youth, then eventually things were on cable, all the same thing over and over again on cable all the time. Like, look, it's Car 54, where are you? Again. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Just watch it over and over again. But back in the day, the majority of times I probably heard the line, Luke, I am your father, wasn't from watching Empire Strikes Back. It was from me and my friends hanging out on the playground with their little toys going, you know, recreating the scene to the best of our ability. Same thing with Mirror, Mirror. You know what I mean? So it seems like a lot of these things could have just been perverted. And these are also the lines that would have been repeated in episode, or camped, or imitated on Saturday Night Live or Second City TV,
Right,
or a
right,
bit on Johnny Carson, right? So, Lord knows where these things came in. I don't know. I mean, my notion is that, I don't demand, and a lot of times things are just misprints in newspapers. But what are you going to do? That's my take on it.
Well,
You know what I mean? But hey, I'm a doubting Tom.
I've seen a number of different presentations about it and had to go, well, that ain't the way it was. That's not, so in that regard, it was, an entertainment, but it's not anything I stay up at night worrying about.
No, why bother, right? If it is what it is, what it is. You know what I mean?
Wow. Okay. Well, that's kind of wacky, but how it happened, couldn't tell you what it means. It's not something I'm putting a whole lot of time and energy into.
Right.
That's that.
Now, let me ask you this, because before we were having our initial conversation, I was able to give you some new information that you hadn't been exposed to before, which was the notion of a new driving me nuts. I'm serious, bro. I get it. What do you want to do? Fine. You win. Go. Stay. Anyway, now look, that's going to go to the next level. You see, giving in, she takes a mile. But whatever, what are you going to do? The notion of chakra removal, which is, I was, I mean, it's one of these things, these new things that are popping out. And we were talking about the notion how these classic terms come from the oral tradition of Sanatana Dharma, then have spread into the New Age diaspora. And more the meanings change until you have people like, everybody using these terms like satsang or karma or cycles, chakras, you know what I mean? And then I came across this notion of chakra removal, and then you were like, had seemed like very pragmatic advice as to why chakra removal might be something that one would want to avoid. So maybe we could touch a little bit upon chakras in the context as limited as a setup to chakra removal. And
first of all, with this chakra removal thing, you'll want to remove your chakras just as much as you want to remove the board where your wiring is. When you blow a fuse, your fuse panel. Yeah, you want to remove that. That's in the subtle of the form of the individuated body. Chakras, there are a great number of chakras, by the way. Not just the 7 spoken of that are along the spine and to the crown of the head, but there are chakras all over the body, and these are merely, chakra just means wheel, and what these are is these are like distribution centers that run certain, and will affect certain aspects of your individuated unit of consciousness in either the physical or the subtle or both. And the higher you go up the chakra from the base of the spine, where Kundalini is resting, is asleep, and then moves up the spine and pierces the chakras and goes through until it lives down or beyond. But these this is like saying you want to take all the wiring and plumbing out of your home. Need for those structures or systems or control mechanisms or faucets or any of that. No. Just if you had no chakras, you would not be here. All of this chakra removal, I'm not sure how much these folks are getting. I bet you a nickel it ain't free.
Yeah. Nothing ever is, baby.
Well, no, this Swami is. Nobody pays me. I don't ask for anything.
How do you survive?
I have an income. It's not much, but it's enough. And what is needed comes. Not a businessman. You know, that's not a business model. This is service to the next ones in line. You know, I mean, this is how the oral traditions have passed through millennia. Ones who come to know help out the ones who don't know that much yet. How it's always been, it's how it is today, and it'll always be this way in some form or fashion. It just, now we have the internet to work with, which we didn't have 50 years ago. But the yogis, the masters, the mystics have always had the inner net. Know things. You would get intuitive about a subject, a person, an event, whatever, that you may have, you know, you didn't read about it in a newspaper, you just know. Something happened, whatever. But, you know, these are, everybody has these abilities to get this sort of stuff. It's just the more subtle your focus becomes, the field is you have to draw from. And once you're not specifically stuck outward at the objects of the senses, satisfaction only through that, and avoidance of pain only through management of input. Once you get beyond that, there's a whole nother subtle and many more subtle levels that you have to work through until you've got the right understanding of what you are. What is this? What's happening? How does this work? You know, I mean, you can, and then you sit, you know, in the meditative practices, you move into I'm going to say a space, but it's not physically a space. But you become at observing the way your own mind works. Thought processes play out. You become adept at figuring out what triggers this reaction, what triggers that reaction, by watching these things happen, watching them get triggered. And then the reaction comes. And if it's something you don't want, well, then if you wish, you can utilize mantra to get back to a more stable position of perception where you can higher spectrum from the brightest of the bright to the darkest of the dark, to take that observation in without either grasping for it or pushing it away. Okay. You just become observation of the entire spectrum.
So we're gonna Brandon wants to be a little kiss ass here, so we're gonna get a question for Swami. Can you explain for those who don't know the mobile ashram idea and how is that going? P.S. So happy to see you, old friend. Brandon, this guy.
Namaste.
That's it.
Okay. One of the plans that is still a potential yet to go is ashram, the Shiva Shakti mobile ashram, where this Swami and Norma would be traveling around the country in an RV and doing presentations, giving talks, all free, just going around and also using, that opportunity being on the road to go and visit with students and get folks who are ready to step into their Swamihood, assisting with that. And, but that's something we're looking at a possibility of in the next years.
Okay.
But that's something we've talked about and gotten blessings from the guru for, and if it all falls into place, then that'll be fun. But that falls into place.
Okay, beautiful.
Still be content. And we'll still utilize whatever is available to use to assist others who are interested.
Okay, beautiful. If anybody's got any last minute questions, feel free to ask us, but I think we're reaching a point naturally where we might want to start winding down. It's a work day, it's a weekday, but I got to tell you, Swami, I got to thank you from the bottom of my heart, because you're part of a special process here for me. The mobile ashram has definitely stopped by my domicile tonight, and I'll tell you, what I'm trying to do, my friend, is I've got problems like everybody's got problems, but my problems, live inside bottles and bags. So what I've been dedicating myself to do is to try and fill up as much time doing worthwhile things like being on YouTube with swamis and going to Saturn and guided visualization meditations and doing as much online as I can in a positive way. And so you definitely helped me kill some time without letting that time go ahead and kill me. So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking the time to be with us for as long as you have been and spend the time and asking us these questions. What would the path to Swamihood encompass? These people, I ask these people for questions.
That depends on the guru, entirely on the guru, and there is no like curriculum structure of, everybody's got it. No. One is a Swami, and then you have the authority within the tradition to make other Swamis. These Swamis who will become gurus themselves, these Swamis who may just be still really working hard on their own personal practices. But this extra bump, ability of work, of service, becomes essential in their own development, but they're not fully done yet. But they could be enormously in various areas or something, and that's still being a good Swami. There is no one, just like with gurus, there is no one way a guru should be. Whose only job is to help you to move beyond your of this individuated body and outwardly focused mind. You are more than that. You always have been. You are right now. You had to forget that. The incarnation game. You are all of this and think you're just this. Well, that's how the game is played. Well, continue. And that's always been that way. It's always going to be that way at this level of the game.
I can dig it. Are there any things that we're asking all these questions, but you have been generous with your time? Is there anything that that we haven't had an opportunity to talk about, or that you would like to share that we haven't spoken about that you would like to leave us with?
Well, if anyone would like to interact privately with this Swami, go to the site www.swami.info. You'll find the personal email address and write with, if you wish, anything. Doesn't matter. You can argue. That's fine. I answer everybody. And, if you want to ask a question, you want to idea about something, perhaps another way to look at a situation in your own life that you're going through, any number of things. You know, I'm more than happy to help in any way at all. So feel free to contact. Also, this Swami does most weekly radio show, online radio show, just like everybody else. Meditative living. And in that, we explore texts, and this Swami gives date on these ancient texts. We talk about the meditation practices, the experiences that come, and all that sort of thing. That's on type 1, the number 1, TYPE radio.com. And that's where you'll find meditative living. And then on Saturdays, we do a show called the Type 1 Radio News Bong. And we discuss guys from Brighton, England, and this Swami. And we discuss news events, conspiracies, you know, whatever.
Right.
So that's what we do.
And remember, folks, when you reach out to Swami personally, if you mention the promo code CW Chanter, you get 10% more enlightenment, right? Promo code CW Chanter, you get 10% more enlightenment. And then what you want to do is you're going to bomb Type 1 Radio on Twitter, hashtag get CW Chanter on meditative living. Hashtag Type 1 Radio on Twitter, get CW Chanter on meditative living. Do it, folks. All 18 of you. Do it now. Rock them. It's a calculated media attack. Right? We play dirty here. I've learned. Absolutely beautiful. Give me that website one more time, just so I can write it down in the chat, and then therefore I can put it into the description later. It's www. Your personal one. www.
Swami.info.
How did you get a that is coveted? When you got swami.info, were you like, dang, like did no one else think to ask for the for that one? Because that's a good one.
I guess not, because it had been meditativeliving.info, and then one of the he works with is a web designer in Australia, and he had set up meditativeliving.info, but restructured it and made it way better than. And that switch, I quit giving money to the people that were me the permission to use meditativeliving.info, and I lost it. So then I just went and searched, is swami.info available? And it was, and I got it, and that's that. So nothing.
Yeah, well, listen, everything happens for a reason. I got to tell you, there's reason enough that I don't forget the Swami that CW Chanter had on his channel is technically the Swami. There you go. I like that. I feel, it's like all those jerks out there like, hi, my name is Brandon Y69, like they have to add like a whole bunch of numbers to distinguish themselves from the other guys. You know what I mean? I am Swami793555 at AOL.com. Look at you, yeah. The sweep. I like it. Well, there you go, folks. I mean, we'll probably wrap it up at that point, because at some point I got to go to bed when my wife is going to kill me. You know what I mean? I'm a householder and not a Swami. Please, I got no defense. I'm not spreading any sort of holy message. You know what I mean? Or maybe I am.
Well, kindly express to your wife this Swami's thank you for allowing you to come out and play.
First of all, I'm the genius, so I'm like, I'm gonna stay clean and sober by staying online 24 hours a day. And my wife is like, that's a great plan. You could always hang out with your wife and kids, but okay, genius, if that's what you want to do. And I'm like, but babe, he's a Swami. If I'm lying, I'm dying. I said to her tonight, she was like, really, third night in a row? She goes, 2 days ago you were on with your personal gay shaman. Then you had to go to Saturn on a guided visualization journey with your boy. now, and I was like, but it's a Swami. It's a Swami. I swear. He's got the hat and
Oh
everything.
man.
The stick, the dot. Come on, babe. Come on. She was like,
Well,
you better help in the morning.
hopefully she'll enjoy it. Who knows? We'll see.
Baby, let me tell you something about my old lady. She ain't never going to see this video. She ain't never watched any of my other ones. I don't think she's going to watch that one. But, you know, God bless her. You know, she's the love of my life, and she's kept me alive, and she's forgiven me all this point. Where would we be without these wonderful ladies, right? We'd be up the Baba without a paddle. I'll tell you that, right? There you go. There you go. A little levity at the end. So, hey, folks, you know, what we'll do now is we'll just kind of wrap it up and we'll say goodbye and let Swami have his exit, and we'll go offline, and we'll say goodbye to each other personally. I had a wonderful time talking to you, really sincerely. This was a great time. This was a great time. I think we learned a lot, and Fractal Truth, your wife subs you. Yeah, that's your third sub. That accounts for 35% of 33% of your audience, there, brother. I love you, Fractal Truth. In the comment section, Thomas Kerwin and Razone Bay, who took over the chat moderator duties. You didn't need to, thank God. We didn't have any monkeys in the house tonight, but we certainly had a great old time. So at that point, we'll say goodbye. Swami, do you want to exit? Do you want to say any goodbyes? And we'll just leave it at that.
I have just typed in my most unprofessional way, namaste and blessings all.
There you go. There you go. Remember, hashtag CW Chanter for president, and then hashtag CW Chanter. Get them on Type 1 radio. Just assault them with emails. Be like, I heard this guy CW Chanter is amazing. You should like totally book him 24 hours a day. That's it. We'll start little. Before you know it, we'll get onto Project Camelot and Truth Radio and all those other Revolution Radio and all those other geniuses. Thank you, guys. Thank you all for hanging out and being with us today. We had a wonderful conversation. Thanks for everybody who participated in the chat. It was really great. It was really great to hear your questions. And we love you. Oop. And we will see you later. Bye-bye, all. Take care now. Good night.